I've shaken hands with Will Smith. I've hugged Little Mix. You're listening to Jsky Chat, the podcast. Thank you for tuning in to Jsky Chat, the podcast. Please like, favourite and subscribe and follow me at Jsky Chat on social media. Coming up on Jsky Chat, the podcast.
I just got so sick of the London-centric world of Westminster politics.
Takes a lot of courage to do what you did.
Well, maybe.
So tell me about your history and what has led to you becoming the Mayor of Manchester, and what were your reasons for wanting to be the Mayor of Manchester?
My history, that's like a big question. And I suppose I better own up to it straight away. I was born in Liverpool, so how can you be the Mayor of Greater Manchester when you're born in Liverpool? I always say it shows how open-minded the good people of Greater Manchester are. But grew up actually mainly here in Manchester. My dad got a job in Manchester when I was 1. Grew up here, comprehensive school. Kind of never necessarily thought I would go on to, I was always kind of, like, I suppose, a typical person from here, a bit doubting myself at times and things. But when I was at secondary school, a teacher said, I think you should go to Cambridge, apply to Cambridge, and I did, and it took me into a bit of a different world, and I was quite political because of my background and everything, and but then obviously saw a different world and kind of used my, I suppose, connections there. And to cut a long story short, I started to get more and more into politics, worked my way up, and finally got to Parliament. But the reason why I'm in this job now is because I just got so sick of the London-centric world of Westminster politics. Yeah. It's like that's the only place that exists. And I tried to argue for Greater Manchester, or Lee, as I was the MP, in that system, and just felt like I was just banging my head on a wall. Yeah. And when this role came along, and bear in mind I'd lost to Jeremy Corbyn in that kind of time, so I'd kind of tried to go for the top job to try and change Labour a bit, because Labour's too London-centric in my view. I just felt, well, look, I've kind of reached the end of the road here with Westminster, and this role felt the right role for me. So a bit of a circuitous route here, but I actually feel I'm in the right job in terms of my character and what I'm trying to do. Amazing. So I feel very lucky, actually.
Oh, fantastic!
You couldn't represent better or work for better people, could you, than the people of this place?
So what do you like about Manchester then, and what challenges have you faced?
I look, what I find inspiring, I find the history of Manchester inspiring. Yeah. You go right back, Peterloo, the mill workers who wouldn't handle slave-picked cotton, the trade union movement, the suffragettes. It's always been the people have had this sort of radical kind of desire to change things for the common good. Yeah. And you can kind of trace that right back through Manchester history. And it's kind of, when you see that thread, and then you think, well, okay, well, I'm in this position, I'm the first elected mayor of Greater Manchester, I've got to live up to that. Brilliant. And do something equally radical, but for the 21st century. And I think, in some ways, whereas the suffragettes were trying to get power to put people into Parliament, I think the new mission is to get power out of Parliament and use it for ourselves, and that's what I'm trying to do here.
Oh, amazing. And we did actually see that spirit as well recently with the atrocities that happened off the back of the Ariana Grande concert, and how the city came together and we all rallied behind each other to change what was a horrible incident and what could have affected us in such a bad way for a long time, right?
You couldn't be more right. So I was 2 weeks elected when that happened, and I'll never forget that day, that Tuesday, coming into this building where we're sitting now, and just not knowing what I was going to find, and wondering what was going to be going on in the street. I just didn't know. I hoped the place would come together. And the biggest decision I think I ever kind of made, really, even of all the other things I've done in this job, was with Sir Richard Lees. We decided to have that vigil, and in retrospect, it's the best thing we did, because
we needed it.
It wasn't about us or the dignitaries. It was just the people could come together, and the voice of the people and the kind of spirit could reassert itself. Manchester had been shaken that night, and then the place could come back and sort of reassert itself. Yeah. And when Tony Walsh spoke to the crowd,
what a moment!
Wow. I mean, honestly, I was right behind him, and I was watching him and talk about rise to the occasion. Yeah. It was like an out of body thing, because he just kind of,
definitely.
And seeing the faces of the people in Albert Square, but then hearing the sort of the kind of the crowd as they were like responding to him and going right down Deansgate. I'll never forget it, and I use this word in its proper sense. It was awesome.
Yeah.
Truly awesome. Because the power of the place was like there. I could feel it.
Yeah.
And that empowered me a bit, really. I drew some strength from that. So, you know, when people talk about Manchester and its sort of, you know, spirit and all of that, it is actually real and tangible, because I felt it that evening.
Definitely.
And yeah, it makes me feel very, very privileged to do this job.
Amazing. Thank you very much. So you've had quite an illustrious political career, obviously. What key moments stand out for you as a defining character-building moment, and what would you like the history books to say about you?
I don't know. There's so, I mean, I've got a lot of things wrong, and I've learned a lot along the way. But in the end, I mean, I'm, I suppose, just a Northwest lad, really, who went there and tried to do my best. Yeah, for my own advancement, and of course, you know, but I tried to stay true to where I'd come from, and I tried to sort of, you know, speak for people here as best I could. I suppose the defining moment, if you're asking me what was the one thing that you would kind of stand out, it would be when, as culture secretary in Gordon Brown's government, I went to Anfield on the 20th anniversary of Hillsborough, because I knew how everyone in that city felt about things, but I was also the government minister in a government that hadn't done enough for that city.
Okay.
So for me, that was my defining moment, I think. Really.
How do you think that changed you as a person?
Because, you know, let's just be honest about this. It was 2009. I've been spending sort of, you know, the years working up, what they say, climbing the greasy pole, as they say in Westminster, where sometimes, you know, you have to, like, you know, toe the line and all of that. Well, I hit a moment there where I'd done a lot of that, and I'd reached the cabinet. Right. But I then had an invitation to an event which I knew I had nothing to say. But the question was, did I just sort of politely find a reason? You know, so in the end, I decided I was going, but I was going to break from the government line, and I was going to try and reopen Hillsborough. Basically, I made that decision before I went, and that was my defining moment, because at that point, if anything, I'd been a bit of a, you know, just like I don't know, following orders a little bit, or, you know, do you know what I mean? You know, not really my own. I was my own person to a degree, but not really my own person. And that was the thing that made me think, well, what am I doing this for? What am I about? Yeah. When I know there's been this injustice, am I just gonna sort of, and that was the
so
thing.
What tipped you over the edge? So that's like a real call to action. It sounds like the culmination of saying no or turning a blind eye for so long that something changed inside of you. What do you think pushed you over the edge?
I'd just been in Westminster for how many years would it be at that point? So I'd have been there 8 or 9 years. Right. And I'd just seen how the place worked, and the way in which politicians were kind of incestuously close with the press, with people in the legal world, and I just kind of worked out that this network that goes on down there wasn't really in the interests of people here.
Takes a lot of courage to do what you did.
Well, maybe. I mean, in some ways, I think not. In that, you know, I could arguably and should have done something earlier, but I think it was just a kind of moment when the scales really fell from my eyes, and just thought, hang on, this just isn't working. You know, you either, and this is what I think that world down there does to you. It makes you either fall in with it completely, or it makes you become an outsider to it that they like to ridicule. And it's that kind of whole thing. I lived through all of that, and in the end, I decided it wasn't my world, really.
It sounds like it reveals people for who they really are.
Do you know what though? And I think this is the thing with it, and I think this is the thing that the public complain about. Okay. Parliament kind of makes you a fraud.
Okay, I understand that.
Do you know what I mean?
I do understand that, yeah.
Because of the way it works, and because of the way the 3-line whip system works, i.e. you're meant to just vote, you're told you've got to vote the party line, or you go and do an interview, you've got to say this because this is what the message we're trying to get out. It makes you be somebody that you're not necessarily.
You can only compromise so much, right?
Correct, and it makes you like vote certain ways, even though you don't 100% feel it, or say certain things, even though you don't believe it.
Yeah.
So the political system we've got makes frauds out of people who are going there with good intentions.
I understand that.
Do you know what I'm saying? And it took me quite a while to realise that.
Yeah.
But I think I finally did realise that.
Do you think it's the best system for us then, or do you think we should maybe look at adapting it a little bit better? Because even when people vote, in a way, it's just like, I know this is going to sound really silly, but it's like X Factor. You vote for someone who sings like an X Factor, a country song every week, and then they win the show and bring out a hip hop album. It's like they can do what they want once they've won, once in power.
Yeah, well, that's it, you know. And I, because I said before, I lost to Jeremy Corbyn, and everyone said to me, do whatever it takes to win that election. And I struggled with that.
That's difficult.
I couldn't do it.
Yeah.
I couldn't be somebody I wasn't just to win.
Okay.
But in some ways, that's what that world down there does to you. And I mean, I suppose it's not just true of politics, isn't it? It's true of any walk of life, really, isn't it?
Success,
you get so far up, and actually you kind of have to do things that are just not what you want to do to carry on. And so I'm making it sound like, oh, woe is me. You know, I made loads of mistakes, and I'd look back at things I should have done differently. But I do think the political system in this country requires pretty major radical change.
Okay.
And the big change, I think, is what we're trying to do here. It's take power out of it, take power out of that London-centric world, give it to big, confident cities like this, and let us just make more decisions for ourselves.
Okay.
Don't tell us. Manchester never likes being told what to do, does it? So
no, that's true.
Don't tell us that we've got to run our schools in this way, or let us. People here are, savvy enough to know what's right for us. Yeah. And I think that's the problem we've got, and it led to the referendum result in 2016. Too many places felt sort of alienated from Westminster and Brussels. It's too far away and not. Yeah. And I think coming out of all of that, let's get power back closer to where people live and use it in that way.
Brilliant. I know we've mentioned his name a few times, but how would you describe Jeremy Corbyn?
As a good man.
Yeah.
And
he's shaken up the political world a lot.
Yeah. And it needed, and I understand why I lost. Because I was what looked like one of those people in suits who'd been reading out the Labour script for all those years. So I understand that, and I understand why the political world was in need of a sort of a real change, and absolutely Jeremy brought that and justifiably won. The only thing I would say back to that is, yes, he and John McDonnell have done that, but they also need to remember why Labour changed to become New Labour under Tony Blair, which was you kind of have to both be true to your principles but reach out enough to win a general election, because Labour in opposition is no good to anybody.
I understand.
And so they tick the box massively on the principles bit, and maybe New Labour lost a bit of that and went too far to the sort of...
Okay.
But what you've got to do is try and tick both boxes. Be true to what you really believe in, but reach out that bit to bring in those people who will help Labour over the line to win a general election. So I think that Corbyn and McDonnell have ticked the first box.
Sounds like a hard dance to do.
Oh, it's very difficult. Of course, and I'm not saying it's
but I agree with what you're saying.
But that's the magic formula. That is where general elections are won. Yeah. And if anything, Labour coming into government in the 90s was ticking both boxes. It had a different set of principles to the Tories who had run out of steam. Yeah. And it had that reach to, but in government, they lost the connection with the roots and the principles and became too much. Yeah. They did, definitely. I saw that happening with my own eyes, So, and I felt uncomfortable with it, with a lot of what was happening. Yeah. So that's the challenge for them now, to get that sort of connection with enough people to form a government, because Labour as a party of protest and opposition is no good to anybody in Manchester.
It's a good point. Do you think that Manchester will always be a Labour city?
I don't take that for granted, and I never in Lee took it for granted that it would always vote Labour. Yeah. And I think things are changing, to be honest. I think the whole Brexit situation has sort of broken some traditional
It's true.
sort of allegiances and loyalties.
Yeah.
So I don't think there is any guarantees for any political party. Every political party can work really hard to prove why they're relevant and why they're right. And so this city, you know, I think has got a kind of a long-term affiliation and affection for Labour, but in my role, I don't take that for granted one iota. And I think Labour and other political parties are going to need to change quite a lot, actually, to keep earning the trust of cities like this.
Good point. So you've been described as a feminist, supporting the use of all women's shortlist for parliamentary candidate selections, and a supporter of LGBT rights, voting in favour of same-sex marriages in 2013. I was recently named one of 31 LGBTQ pioneers of colour as part of Black History Month in the same category as legendary trailblazers such as RuPaul, Lizzo, Billy Porter and Nicola Adams. It's always encouraging to see you openly participating and supporting Manchester Pride. I know time can be precious with all the issues compounded in being a city mayor, but what compels you to do this?
Well, firstly, wow, congratulations to you, by the way. You're in some pretty amazing company there. You must feel yourself. Yeah, I bet. Well, we all are for you, and we all celebrate your success. That's absolutely fantastic. No, I'm very conscious that, I mean, this is a city about equality and diversity. And I'm very conscious that I've got to be, as much as I can, a mayor for everybody who's on the level with every, you know. So I think it's really important to me that all communities can see that I'm there for them. Yeah. But also I'm going to give all communities a voice in Greater Manchester devolution, and everyone's part of this thing that we're trying to build. So I love going to Pride. I think I might live to regret my YMCA at Manchester Pride a couple of years ago, which was no, I love going. This, you know, I mentioned all those great things that Manchester had done over the years. Let's remember as well, birthplace of the LGBT rights movement, and you know, that is something that you know, needs to be in the list of those crucial social movements that grew out of this city. I mean, I actually remember very well growing up here when we had an openly homophobic chief constable of Greater Manchester Police. And it's you know, it's barely believable in some ways now, but he was, and you know, Happy Mondays were writing songs about him, and you know, everyone was, you know, kind of completely in opposition to him, you know, and he just didn't. And you know, I think sometimes we feel, don't we, you know, when we see what's going on social media and what things are being said, there's kind of sometimes a feeling that we're going backwards, but actually think about that. You know, he was heading up our police only 30 years ago, and now we have a police force that's totally different in terms of the way it values and promotes diversity, and that is a good social change that we should be proud about.
Brilliant. Really well put. Lastly, just to end it on a nice note, why did you agree to do this interview with me today, and what is your impression of the work that I do for Manchester and for others?
Well, because you're the next force in Manchester. You know, you're the coming generation. You're so well known from all of the things that you've done.
Thank you.
In your media and music career. You connect with a lot of young people, including my own kids. You're a role model
thank you very much.
For a lot of young people. They will look up to you, and I think, you know, a lot of young people growing up in this city need to see Mancunian role models up there, don't they?
Yeah, it's not enough.
And particularly from Black community, LGBT. I mean, that matters, doesn't it? You know, really people need to see in the kind of public eye people that they can relate to, and sometimes, you know, certainly when I was growing up, it kind of felt that, you know, you had to be from a certain public school or speak a certain way to get profile, and to, you know, and I just think, you know, this city is so proud of you, what you've achieved, but it's that thing about you being a role model, and I want to empower you and give you more profile so that you can be more of an inspiration to those kids who are growing up all around Greater Manchester, who sometimes think, well, I can't be that, or I can't achieve anything. I've felt that all my life, and I bet you have too.
100%.
Yeah, you know what I mean?
Even now, I can turn on the TV and I will struggle to find someone that sort of is what I'm about.
Yeah.
There's people that are coming close to it, and I think that the world is changing, but
Yeah.
I really do appreciate those words, and thank you so much.
Do you ever feel, though, when you're in media land down there, that, you know, you're going to get like a tap on the shoulder and someone's going to say, oh,
You don't belong there.
you don't belong here anymore, and I felt that in Parliament all the time I was there, that you're an outsider in their world. And
even when I went for the casting for Naked Beach, I was looking around the room and I thought, why would they pick me out of these people? Because I am not the image that is portrayed as body confidence. You don't see a skinny black gay person in that role. But then that just made me think, well, they're either definitely going to want me or they're definitely not, because it's something that's not being covered. And it exists. I mean, we should all love everybody. Everyone should be represented. 100%. And if there's a gap, then it's about time it got filled, right?
Well, absolutely, 1,000,000% to that, you know. And I kind of just feel so much that that is one change that your generation is bringing through. When I look at my son, who's 19, and I see his friends and talk to them, they don't see difference.
That's great.
In the way that almost we were taught to do, or kind of encouraged to. You know, that's how it was in Britain in the 70s and 80s. You were encouraged to sort of be suspicious of, and they don't. And that is, you know, it's hard to have hope right now, isn't it? When you look at the Brexit debate and other things. But then I look at that generation campaigning on climate change, you know, true believers in diversity as far as I can see, and that actually gives me hope for the future. So the reason why I'm doing an interview with you is that you are a standard bearer for all of that, for that generation. And I think now that my generation has completely, I was going to use a rude word, messed up politics, I think I'm looking to yours to come along soon and fix it again.
Thank you so much for your interview and for your time. I really appreciate that.
Thank you for tuning in to Jsky Chat, the podcast. Please like, favourite and subscribe, and follow me at Jsky Chat on social media.